today. We are having our first episode about security champions, and it's a simply understandable topic, needs no introduction. So we will follow with Marcos from Glovo. Is it how your company has to be?
Yes, that's the correct pronunciation.
Is it so it's some Spanish general pronunciation of V?
Yeah, the V is more like a B. I'm not from Spain either, but the V is more like a B, so it's global.
Yes, so I checked on Wikipedia so that I can pronounce it correctly, Globo. But if you want, so the spelling is with V, Globo, exclamation mark. And this company is something like, so it's a food delivery, right, company, and a competitor to probably Volt or Food Panda, Yandex Food, and the similar companies, or probably you are just better, right?
Yep.
So our main presentation is from Marcos, but here we are watching Marcos and probably interrupting Marcos at some points of his presentation to ask questions or express our opinion, probably. So interrupting Marcos is the way we designed this meetup in order not to make it a presentation-based or focused, but rather a bit more of a discussion meetup, as we like it. And we also will be doing, we also continue this topic probably 2 weeks later, maybe on March 24th, with Julia. She will be talking about about her experiences being a security champion, or rather a fresh security champion, probably. You are doing it like for a year now, Julia, or longer?
Overall 1.5, but yeah, with a slow start.
So the pains and the lessons and the success stories that will be the next episode. So today our episode is more about normative part of Security Champions concept, and we will be focusing on the second edition of Security Champions Playbook, which is an OWASP project. And actually, with Alexander, we already had one, a meetup, like probably 3 years ago or something like that. And then Alexander, as the original master of this project, delivered the first edition of the Security Champions Playbook. So now we revisit the topic, and Marcos joined Alexander in creating or continuing this wonderful project. Let me say some words about one of our sponsors. They are the Hack and Langos, which is the major Hungarian hacker podcast and a Telegram channel. Langos is something like Hungarian pizza, probably. So Hack and Langos then is the name of this podcast and the group. It's in Hungarian. So if you don't speak Hungarian, then you are out of luck to follow them. Yep, and on the video you also can see the DevDev logo in the corner, because actually full disclosure, DevDev is also my business. So and WW provides the technical background infrastructure for delivering this meetup, because unfortunately I couldn't manage to, or there were difficulties to use the official OWASP Zoom infrastructure. Problems with that infrastructure again. Yes, we had a response from Hacken Language for our shout out about them. And that's it. Marcos, the stage is yours.
Perfect. Thanks, Timur. So hello, everyone. Thanks once again for having me here. It's my first time at this event, so I'm pretty much excited. So as Timur said, today the objective is not to present a static topic. It's more about returning to a previous discussion about the security champions. And it's much more about talking about the pain points, the experiences, sharing the paths which each company or each champion has been through. So feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'll try to be brief so we can have more time to discuss things. But yes, indeed, I have a lot of topics. So basically, the idea is to start with the security champions refreshers. So let's get back to the roots of it and just align on what exactly does it mean, because I see a lot of misunderstanding and confusion and different definitions about what is a champion, what are the expected outcomes of a security champion program. So it's good that before we get started, we're aligned on this. And then we're going to revisit the playbook. Currently is in its version 2.0, and we have the father of it here, Alexander. So it's going to be quite an interesting discussion. And the idea here is not to overwrite the playbook by any means, but to validate some of the things that are exposed there, and also complement with new ideas, updates, maybe new suggestions. So it's very important that before anything, we discuss it and speak with the community, share experiences, and check if everything makes sense. So basically what I plan is to go through each of the 6 steps. That's how the playbook is currently organized into 6 steps. And not describe in details each of the points there, but actually to add more things or talk about the pain points or the things that are not explicit in the playbook, so we can discuss these points. One of the things that I'd like to spend a little bit more time is about building a training program. I don't think this is deeply explored in the current playbook or in the Security Champions materials we have out there, and it's an extremely important part of the program. And finally, I'm going to share some true benefits that I've seen through in my experience with the Security Champions program. So we have a recent one, so we have some fresh perspectives to add here. So who am I? I'm a senior security engineer, as Timur said, at Glovo. Glovo is a unicorn in the delivery segment. So it would compete with Deliveroo, Delivery Hero, Uber Eats, something like that. We're based in Barcelona, and well, it's a pleasure to be here. So at Glovo, I work as a product security engineer. I lead a team, and our main concerns are about secure software development lifecycle and application security in general, of course. So we work close to the code base, but we also manage the vulnerabilities lifecycle. So from reporting to fixing and validating, the bug bounty program, all the offensive security testing. So penetration tests, web application penetration tests, mobile, everything belongs to us. And of course, the security champions, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And this image, in case you can see it, it's a very, very accurate representation of all us security professionals, I guess, working in security. It's not stressing at all. John 26. Okay, let's go through a quick refresher here in terms of security champions. So what is a security champion? What is this all about? There is a lot of buzz and hype about it, but some people don't even have a clear definition of it. So OWASP has this definition and is the one that is present in the current playbook. And it says that a security champion is a dedicated software developer, engineer, sysadmin, who acts as a core element of the security assurance process within a product service or system. So what does it mean? Basically, a champion is someone who's not in the security field, so it's not a full-time security professional, but also has some responsibilities and is in touch with security. So it's like a spreader, is a disseminator, is someone who's going to help increase the level of security maturity inside your company, throughout the company. So it's a lot aligned with the DevSecOps concept, with the shift left movement, breaking silos, all these buzzwords. So I see a very clear implementation of these concepts into the Security Champions program. So let me point some more concrete expectations and tasks that are related to champions. So first of all, champions are the internal security point of contact for each and every team. So the idea of having these people who are not from the security side working with security is because now we have lots of people spread throughout the company with different backgrounds, different perspectives, different contexts that we can reach out and communicate quite easily and enhance the quality of the security procedures. So they can also help team managers to monitor that best practices in terms of security are followed by the team. They can help to disseminate the security by design philosophy company-wide, and also assist in mitigating vulnerabilities, in responding to incidents, participating in this internal and external security community, or even providing assistance and feedback during POCs. So these are some examples. This is not an extensive list of things, but you see, there are many ways someone who's not a full-time security professional can help into the security realm. But for this to happen, we need to have a plan. And this program is not something that is going to come out easily out of the blue. It's something we need to work and plan and maintain for quite a while. And I think this is one of the pitfalls that I've seen when talking with other fellows that say, hey, Security Champions program did not work for us. And one of the things that I noticed was that they had some flaws in the planning and the implementation. So the playbook in its current version has a very interesting approach in 6 steps. And for each step, they identify some key things, some key results, some key activities that the security champion manager or team leader should pay attention to. So the idea is that we go through each of these steps, and I'm not gonna go deep into any of the points here, but when we try to implement this, we've seen some things that work quite well, some things that did not work for us, and came up with some ideas and some new concepts that we would like to discuss here. So I'm also attaching here the link. It's very interesting if you could check it out. All right, so Security Champions sounds like a good idea. Maybe you don't have a full security staff. Maybe you're trying to make your developers learn a little bit more about security. Whatever the reason is, if you think that this definition fits your company or your current situation, you should always start with step 1 that is called identify the teams, but actually is a little bit broader than this. So we could say that phase 1 is about mapping the existing organizational structure you'll be working with. So it's about knowing your company, your organizational structure, because now you're not in the security silo, you're not in a development silo, you are acting company-wide. So it's very important to enumerate and identify clearly who are the teams, how many do you have, who are the main stakeholders, the managers, key developers, which are the products that your company have, how many repositories, which are the technologies that you guys use, how is your stack composed. So all these elements, they're going to provide you visibility and context to set up the rest of the program. So if you don't have clarity at this moment, you're probably going to do something that is not aligned with your reality. So that's why I say that nothing that is written here is written in stone. These are just guidelines, but you really should adapt and adjust this to your company. And all this is defined in the playbook. But there are some things that we noticed that are not there and were also very important. So as an outcome of this phase, you should have a document, a wiki page, a table, something that enumerates clearly all these elements that we've been talking about. However, there are some subjective aspects that are not covered there. So for instance, a very important thing to identify here, especially if you're new to the company or if you don't have a security program at all, you should identify the company culture. So how is security in general? So how is the security perspective throughout all the teams? Do they do anything in terms of security? Do you have procedures in place or not? This is important to understand how much friction you're gonna face. It's very important to identify your internal and external procedures. How is security organized right now? So it's really about getting the big picture and context here. And everything, as much as you can, should be documented publicly. But I think the key point that is not written here is about establishing connections and gaining trust. So at this first moment, it's so important to not just come out with a table, but to really establish human interactions, talk to people in many levels, get as much information and context as possible. So talk to developers, talk to managers, talk to PMs, to EMs, whoever you can. Present your ideas and listen to their feedbacks, to their pains or their security situations, if they have something, if they have nothing. This is very important for you to understand, so you can come up with a program that is that fits the moment that your company is living, right? So feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay, so all right. You spent some time understanding the program.
I have a question, if you don't mind. If you
go on.
Do you have any experience with the special company structure, or maybe project structure or project methodology, which doesn't fit with the Security Champion system at all, or when it is really difficult to implement the Security Champion system? And on the other hand, do you have some knowledge about what is the like best company culture and structure for Security Champion?
Right. I think that it's totally valid. I don't think there is a proper or best structure. I think that the most important thing is that the company establishes a clear commitment in terms of security posture. So we're going to talk about it, but it's very important that the company is on board with your security program as a whole, including the security champions. So if senior management and all levels of management, they agree with this idea, then I don't think that the company structure is going to be a blocker at all. Of course, there are some structures that might be more agile, more flexible, and more aligned to a DevSecOps philosophy. And this could make it easier. So if you think in terms of the Spotify model, the concept of a security champion is similar to a guild in some sense. So in this case, might be a little bit more natural. But after all, it all boils down to establishing communication and disseminating security into each product and each team. So I don't think that any company structure could be a blocker for this. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. And then another question just popped up. What is your experience? Who are the so I guess there are people normally who are more difficult to who don't really want to deal with security, and there are some other people who do want to deal with security, and they are grateful and happy with any kind of invention which might help the security quality of the which might help to develop the security quality of the company. So do you have any view on it, who are the people who like it more? Like, do developers normally like and are happy and grateful when you come up with the idea that we should create a security champion systems? And what about managers, and what about project managers, and what about
right? That's a very pertinent thing too. So this is why you need to, in step one, map your company culture and establish human interactions. So you can identify clearly who are people who are supportive and those who are not supportive for a Security Champions program or any new security initiative. It's going to happen in all levels. You might have developers who think this is not appropriate to their moment because they have large and long backlogs, and this is something else. This is something more they're going to have to do. You can find PMs that think this is like a blocker, or engineering managers who are not on board, or even senior management and on the product side, for instance, that think this is not relevant for the company. So having people who are not supportive is absolutely normal. So there are two strategies, in my opinion, to overcome this. First of them, again, is establishing human interactions, having a clear plan. This is where the playbook really shines, with everything documented and clear, and stating the clear benefits. So we can engage with all those blockers, all those people who are not supportive, and really explain them and try to convince them with reasonable arguments. Why do you think this is good for the company, for the security team, and especially for them and their teams? So this might take some time and requires a lot of effort. So it's very important to map and engage with those people who don't seem to be supportive. But overall, I think it's very important to get senior management support. So if the company does not commit with this program, it's not going to work. Okay, no matter if your developers are on board, if your CTO is not on board, this is not going to work. Okay, so you need to convince all levels, from upper to down, and this is how security should be done, at least in the classical approach, top down. So at some point you might need to just enforce this, but besides enforcing, you need to convince people and talk to them. So this is how we've been dealing with it, and it seems to be reasonably successful.
Thanks.
All right. Sure. Okay, so you identified and mapped everything in your company, your culture, your teams. You spoke with people. You convinced non-supportive people that this is maybe it's a good idea. And for all the others, you have the mandate from senior management saying that this is a necessary thing. So you're able to move on and really establish the project. So the first thing after you get this big picture is to having clarity of what we're talking about. So defining the role is the second step, and it's actually extremely important too. So as per the playbook, it says that the main objective of this step is to come up with tangible goals and to prepare clear role descriptions for future security champions. So two highlights here: tangible goals and clear role descriptions. So one thing that I've seen that it's very bad for the program is not having clarity of what you expect and do not expect from champions. So we need to understand that when we assign a champion, or when we come up with this program, there is a trade-off. So champions will need to commit at least time and effort. You might need some budget. So there is some cost here, and you need to explicitly state what is expected as an outcome and what is not expected as an outcome. And always keeping in mind that security champions are not security professionals, in the sense that they are not full-time security professionals, in the sense that they might not have enough training or skills or experience in security. So remember, they can be sysadmins, they can be developers, they can be, well, all kinds of professionals. So we need to align the expectations with the reality, right? So stating what are the roles is very, very important. And also, not only that, but also which are the benefits. So why should we come up with this new role? Which are the benefits for the champions? Which are the benefits for the security team? Which are the benefits for the company as a whole, for each team, for each manager? So unless we have clear benefits and explicitly state which are the costs, this is going to sound like an ethereal and unrealistic program. So I would spend a lot of time here defining the role and fine-tuning it as best as you can. One of the pain points here is about time commitment. So when I was introducing this program for the first time, some managers came up to me and said, okay, sounds good, I can see benefits, but you know, I have lots of things to do, new features, new deadlines, and I need to know how much time is it going to consume, right, from my champions, from my developers. So as a rule of thumb, we would say that up to 20% of their time is acceptable, although we have champions who spend even more time on the security side, more than 20% of their time, and some of them don't reach 10% of their times. So it's not written in stone, it's flexible. It depends on the team, it depends on the quantity of champions you have per team. It's not written in stone, and it's very important that you adjust this to your company. But having this rule of thumb, this base estimate, might be very important for convincing people too. And after all, after defining everything, you really should document it and write down in a public, accessible place, like a wiki page. So everybody knows about this and has transparency and visibility about what is this and what are the expectations. Another thing that we feel like is not clearly defined in the playbook is about how to measure progress. So we recommend, and we've seen this is something important, at least for us, to establish some metrics and some KPIs that could help us see how we're going in terms of the project implementation. So we're defining the role, we're saying what we're going to do. So how do you measure if it's working or not? So you could use raw metrics like the number of products or repositories covered, the percentage of training path completed per champion, or the rate of increase in some variable, some metric like the number of proactive engagements by champion. And recently I've seen this OWASP top 10 maturity categories for champions, which is something new, but also provides some metrics here, which could be interesting to check out. These KPIs as metrics, they are very related to the program itself, to the development and implementation of the project. It's important to track them inside a bigger picture of a roadmap. So a roadmap is another thing that I've seen that managers normally want to see. Okay, you're coming up with this idea. How long is it going to take until my champions are ready to do what they need to do? Which are the main events? When are they going to be out of the office because of trainings or events? What are the timelines, the milestones, the main tasks? Put everything clearly in a roadmap with timeframes if you can, even if it's just an estimative, but at least some ideas of what should happen. This would be step number 2, so about defining the role. So we've already mapped the company, then we came up with a plan, we documented, we wrote it down, we convinced people, and okay, now we're good to go. The next step's about nominating champions. And nominating champions can be a little bit tricky. So it's not just about picking a few names and saying, hey, from now on, you're going to spend 20% of your time in security, just go. You should, first of all, get approval on all levels. So do not nominate a champion without speaking with their manager. Do not nominate a champion without speaking with the champion. So in the first step, you talk with some people, you might have seen that some of them are more interested in security, and have an enthusiasm and wishing to learn more about security is a key point for choosing a champion. So if you have this in place, all the approvals and the knowledge of who's who, then you need a strategy to cover all your products or most of them. So how do you do that? This is one of the things that we propose a few changes. So first of all, the most natural thing for us was to establish one champion per team. So we mapped all the teams, the current situation, and then we just identified and talked to the managers and assigned one champion per team. So we have one champion for platform, one champion for user experience, one champion for each microservice, and so on and so forth. And this is pretty much what is written in the playbook. Of course, you can have more than one in case you need a backup or something, or if the team's too large. But it's important to keep in mind too that we want to establish a single point of contact. So if I have a problem, a security issue in the user experience team or in a repository or project maintained by them, I'm going to go directly to that security champion. So if I have many of them, this might break the main point of having a single point of contact. But on the other hand, we noticed that at some point, this was not enough. So let's say that the user experience team is quite large and they have mobile developers, they have backenders, front-enders, and these are different sets of experiences and different scopes inside their teams. So if we assign a front-ender as a champion, maybe this person won't have the whole context or visibility when it comes to mobile development or to the backend, even inside their teams. So it's very important to make it effective. And for that, we realized that sometimes we can have more than one champion per team, of course, without breaking the single point of contact premise. So the idea is that we can have one champion per team and per platform. So if I have an issue in a mobile platform inside the UX team, I have a specific champion for that. If I have a problem in the back end of the UX team, I have another champion. This way we can cover everything in more specific ways without breaking the basic principles. I've seen other companies that do it quite differently. I've seen companies that nominate champions per repository in GitHub, in case you don't use like a monorepo approach, or even per geography. Some multinationals that are spread around the world, they have champions in South America or Europe, or I don't know, spread around the world. These are all valid approaches. This is one that seems to fit us better. Not all the teams have more than one champion in our situation here. Some are small and one champion is enough to cover everything. And we really try to not have too many champions. I'm going to talk about it very soon. So if we think of how many champions we need, that's a very common question too. I think everybody that works with security champions asks this. Okay, how many champions should I have? My idea is that you should have a number that is large enough to cover all your organization, or at least the most important and critical parts of your product, but also small enough to keep close relationships. And this is very important. I think the main benefit of having this program in place is about communication. So having this close communication with a few people, and these few people, they have a close communication with other people inside your teams. It's a way to spread the security mindset in a consistent way. And there is one idea called the Dunbar's number. It's been used in the agile realm. And it basically says that the more people you have in your network, the weaker are the ties. So if you have like 5 people working daily with you, then odds are that you're gonna be close friends or like a family or something. But if you increase that number to 15 people, you cannot have strong relationships with all of them. If you increase to 50, that's even weaker until you reach that hard number of 150. This is like hard coded into our biology, according to Dunbar. And so I wouldn't recommend, from our current experience, to grow your security champions more than 150 people, because by doing this, you might lose the sense of internal community. Of course, this can be done, but it would require a lot more maturity and a better organization. So managing fewer champions is easier to keep them tight and united and keep in touch with each other and having this straight communications, both vertically from the security team to the champions and vice versa, and also horizontally between the champions and their teams. So from our experience, we've seen that having a number up to 50 champions would be ideal. So if this is enough to cover your organization, then this is the number we would suggest. Again, it's not written in stone, but it's something that we've seen from our experience.
Marco,
Sure.
may I have a question?
Of course.
I can assume that managing even 50 people might require a lot of security engineers. So what would be the nice number to have security engineers that will support the security champions and keep a sane atmosphere? So according to your experience, how much do you have in your team?
Yeah, so from what we've seen, up to 50 people, it's possible that a small team of security professionals can manage. So even one person could somehow lead the 50 champions. That's what we've seen from our experience. Of course, if you have more people on board, that would be very useful. But the point is that when the team starts to mature and gain more experience and be more solid, the security champions, they can start managing themselves. So it's like a community. At the beginning, you need a very strong leadership, but at some point, this starts to work by itself. So my suggestion is to start gradually and do an incremental approach. So start with few champions, and one person, one security leader can take care of them all, like 5. That would be like the closest number in Dunbar's scale. And when they acquire sufficient maturity, then you can start expanding this to 15, up to 50, or even more if you feel like so. Because when you expand to the next level, those 5 first people, they're going to be more mature and they're going to be able to lead partially the rest of the team too. So this incremental approach is quite interesting. That's what we've seen so far. So instead of starting with a 50 or 150, whatever your goal is, start with a few numbers, with a few champions and just one security leader, and just keep expanding the program so it can manage itself.
And in timeline, how much would it take approximately to have prepared those first 5-10 people to start contributing?
Perfect. So it depends on the level of maturity and experience of these 5 people. So if they have no experience at all in security, I would wait at least 1 quarter to provide all the trainings and for you to fine-tune the processes and the quality of the materials. This would be like an experimental thing. So 1 quarter is enough to make this happen at this core level. And then you can start expanding each quarter, like 15 or 10 people. You can accelerate it if you have more people on board, if you're prioritizing it really much. But I wouldn't rush in. My recommendation is start it slow and gradually increment this. So at least 1 quarter to make this happen.
Hey, Marcos, just one quick question. You mentioned 2 very good points, actually, to have a Security Champions program, like the human interaction and the communication with people. How did this change with the COVID-19 situation and work fully remote? Is it more difficult Did you notice a difference in keeping this engagement, or what's your take on it?
Yeah, that's a very, very, it's not specific to the Security Champions program, but to any project. What I've seen is that maintaining engagement remotely is not the same thing. So yes, there are some drawbacks having this distance, because you cannot put everybody together and look them in the eyes. So that means you're going to need to make an extra effort in the 6th step, that is maintaining engagement, establishing very good communication channels. And one of the things that I think are essential is to have a constant sessions with them, live sessions. So the playbook says that you should have like a static source of truth, where you're going to put ideas and resources and materials and study guides, have an e-sign, have a newsletter. But these they can work great if you are all together. But when you start working remotely, this might not be enough. So my recommendation is to have live sessions with them and try to engage on one-to-ones and as close as possible, at least in the beginning. So don't just fire and forget, be in touch with the champions. We're going to talk about this in the next steps, but yes, I think working remotely has some drawbacks, but it's certainly not impossible to maintain the program.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. It's still in step number 3. I'll try to be a little bit faster here, which is nominating champions. One of the things that are not clear in the playbook is about the onboarding process. So this is a mistake that we made. When we started the program, we just assigned champions, we nominated them, and there were so many things going on that we didn't take the time to talk to them, explain in one-to-ones, and introduce them to other champions, talk about the program, explain what are the expectations, how are the trainings going to be put in place, communicate it company-wide that we have a new champion, adding them to channels, events, meetings. So I remember once we forgot to add a champion to the Security Champions channel. So he was like completely excluded from everything. So having this onboard process very clear and, if possible, automated, it's also very important. So I would recommend you spend some time here too. And as soon as you can, assign them a first task, even if it's a very simple one, and start the trainings as soon as possible. This is essential. Step number 4 is establishing communication channels. So that's exactly what we were talking about, especially in this situation where we're working remotely and we don't have human interaction like very closely. It's very important to establish efficient communication channels. So at least one channel where you can communicate as a group, as a community, and share resources, ideas, ask questions, whatever it is. So it's important to keep that channel agitated and try to provoke them to be proactive too. It might take time, it might require some leadership here, especially in the beginning, but it's very important to struggle with it. Another point is it's very, very important to keep a non-toxic and open and friendly environment. Champions are probably not security experts. They might have no idea about security at all. So they need to feel safe and free to ask even simple questions or ask for advice on simple things. So this is very important that you try to motivate a non-toxic environment. It's not only about setting up an internal communication channel, but it's important to communicate it company-wide. So what are the champions doing? Who are the champions? What are the main tasks? Did you get any major accomplishment through this program? So communicate it, give it visibility. It's good for the champions, it's good for the program, it's good for everybody. One-to-ones, some people are shy, some people are not comfortable with speaking with other people in groups. So make sure to keep this communication channel clear and engage in communication, private communication with some people if necessary. This is very important to collect feedback and maintaining a broad level of engagement. The fifth step is one of the most complex, in my opinion. It's where I don't fully agree with the playbook. The knowledge base, according to the playbook, is more like a static source of truth, where the security leaders are going to put some information there, some resources, and the champions can proactively go there and use it as a guide. Although this is very useful, I would not expect many results if you do not provide enough resources. So it's much more about empowering developers with the right security tool set. It's about providing the necessary trainings, the necessary tools, the necessary knowledge before you expect them to accomplish any of the tasks that you established in step number 2 when you were defining the role. And keep in mind that security champions have different backgrounds and experiences. So some of them come from data, some of them might come from front end, back end, some of them might not be developers at all. And it's very important to assume that they did not have any kind of previous security knowledge. So let's build this from ground zero and establish the foundations and level them all at the same level and put everybody on the same page. So my point here is that static knowledge might not be enough. It might not suffice to have a wiki with links there. We need to go one step further. And this is where comes the idea of building a training program. So trainings must provide the necessary knowledge and resources for the champions to be able to promote a change in the security posture inside their teams. If we really expect them to come up with results, we need to provide the resources. That's the bottom line. Don't expect people who have no experience in security to suddenly become security experts. It's just not going to happen. Furthermore, it's also a communication tool. So that's what we were talking about in terms of being distant and not at the same place. So having communication is very important. And the training program can be a communication tool too. So we ran some surveys and polls, and we identified 3 preferred methods of training. So one of them is having live sessions. And again, this is a good way to establish communication tools and the feeling of an internal community. But having self-paced trainings is like the preferred way for developers from our experience. But this does not mean that you should have a static and boring training. This should be a customized, dynamic, and interesting as much as possible training. And finally, you should not skip labs. So one of the things that I've seen is another company where they started recording videos, short videos, with vulnerabilities, real vulnerabilities from their database. So a vulnerability that happened 3 months ago, they went there, the security team went there and exploited the vulnerability and showed the impacts and how they fixed it. They recorded a video and they provided as self-paced trainings, and then they created a virtual machine, a simple lab where champions could practice that. So this is an example of a dynamic kind of training. There are many aspects that you should cover. Some of them we call foundational, and some of them are called internal. So the foundational aspects of a security champions training program is like the basic things that all champions should know. So you should adapt it to your company too. But from what we've seen is that, first of all, they need to understand about the program. So it's Security Champions 101. I always have a session with all the new champions explaining all the details about the program and what we expect from them. It's like explaining phase number 2. And then security coding and OWASP top 10. This is very important. And my recommendation is not to do something boring here, but try to bring real vulnerabilities, especially vulnerabilities from your own code base. Security assessments like penetration testing is probably the most interesting and sexy thing that people associate with security. And it's very important to develop the attacker mindset. So there are many resources out there. You can come up with CDFs, you can come up with a Hack the Box team, or you can even simulate and have hackathons. or bug bounty programs where they can really practice the basic knowledge that you're going to provide. Threat modeling, I think it's like the basics, and is really, really foundational and important. So I can imagine an effective Security Champions program without threat modeling. So if we expect them to actually find threats and to really add the security by design concept inside their teams, they really need to know the right tool set. So explain about Stride, about PASTA, whatever framework you want to use in threat modeling, and make sure that they practice it. It takes time to do good threat modeling. So this is something where I would spend a little bit more time here. You can also add things about incident response, GRC, and especially associate it with the internal trainings. So champions are gonna be like the main reference in terms of security inside their teams. So they should know about your internal policies, standards, procedures, guidelines, the tool set you use, about your incident response playbooks, how you manage vulnerabilities, and how they fit in all those processes. So it's very important that this is clear for them. We have an example here of levels of security champion. This is something experimental, but basically we would expect all the champions to come at level 0. So the only thing that they have is company-wide training. So basically your internal security awareness training. And in level 1, they have been through all the foundational topics. So at level 1 is where we would expect them to start coming up with results. I wouldn't expect anything, any practical results before giving at least the foundational training. At level 2, we've seen that some champions needed to go deeper into specific trainings, like some mobile developers needed to know a little bit more about Android and iOS security, while backenders needed to know a little bit more about Spring security. Front-enders needed to know how to validate input in Vue and Next. Infrastructure people were more interested in cloud stuff or BTD. So this is where they started to become more proactive, and we would expect them to really do the research and present it to other folks and really disseminate the security mindset. So at this point, the program is going to be more mature, and your champions will really start to add value, not only as results, but also to the Security Champions program itself. At level 3, we have what we call security rock stars. This takes time, and it's after the champion receive all the trainings, level 1 and level 2, they can start really acting on everything that is expected. And after a few months, maybe a quarter, they really show like they want to go on with this, and they're really passionate about security. So this is where you're going to start using them to make more complex things, organize trainings, organize events, manage the other champions, the newbies, or even, who knows, make a career change. Last but not least, this is quite a complex topic. It's about maintaining interest. It has nothing to do with Security Champions specifically, but it's more about leadership. So it's very common to see champions very excited in the beginning, but at some point it starts getting boring. It's not all about hacking the planet. It's a lot about fixing vulnerabilities and reading policies, and it's part of the process. But you should really try to maintain interest. Okay, so it's your responsibility as a technical leadership, as a project manager, let's put it this way, to provide guidance and not let the engagement levels fall. So this framework here comes up with 5 pillars for this. They are meaning, autonomy, growth, impact, and connection, the magic thing. So whatever you do after you establish the program, you should focus on each and every of these pillars. Here are some examples of things you could do. So again, having communication channels well established, group communication channels, public communication channels, one-to-ones, really engage with them. This requires leadership. It's part of it, especially in the beginning. Promote informal meetings. Go have some beers. Do some exclusive events. Promote internal events like CDFs, hackathons, bug of the month, whatever it is. make it fun and gamified if possible. Try to attend conferences, especially if you can do it together. Ask for feedback all the time. This is so important, especially if you feel that the engagement levels are dropping. Ask for feedback. See how you can improve. Let them do the job too. Assign missions to idle champions. Not all the champions have equally distributed workloads. So if you feel like one champion's not doing a lot, this might be frustrating. Try to praise publicly whenever possible. Come up with exclusive swags. Our hoodies are very popular here. And come up with periodic meetings. Like, this is essential, especially in COVID times. By the way, this was so epic, the kitty thing. Okay, just to wrap it up, I know we're short in time. The true benefits. These are the things that we saw happening when we started maturing the program. First of all, communication. Before having champions assigned, it was so hard to communicate, especially in terms of vulnerabilities. We had vulnerabilities and we did not have the context and visibility on that specific part of the code base. So once we assigned single points of contact, it became so much easier to fix them. So we saw a reduction in time to mitigate, if you consider that a metric. We also saw an increase in security awareness throughout the company. It was very important for offloading the core security team. So our security team here is not big. And as I said, we didn't have much context and visibility into some parts of the code base. So from the moment that we can just delegate and assign something to the champion, they can do it better than us. We also saw a better overall quality of the code, especially because of the threat modeling thing. So before model your threats, you need to establish a DFD and see how the data flows inside your application. So just by drawing this diagram, it's already positive. And security is just all about quality. So when you think about security, you're naturally thinking about best practices and not using dirty hacks. We also saw that some managers told us that they feel more secure when it comes to security, no pun intended, because now they have someone to help them and to raise a flag whenever they're doing something wrong in terms of security, whenever they're breaching internal policies and things like that. It's also an effective way to boost the shift left movement because now we're adding security right from the start. And again, we saw several improvements in terms of metrics for our vulnerability management program. I could dive into more details here, but we're short on time and I don't know if you're gonna go for some questions. So thank you so much. And I'm totally open for feedback and I hope to hear what do you think about it. That's it.
Thank you. I have one
Thanks a lot.
extra question.
Sure.
You said about successes. Can you share about something about some failures?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the failures that I think were critical, at some point during the establishment of the process, we saw a very severe drop in the levels of engagement. So we saw that some champions were very excited at first, but then they started receiving a bunch of notifications and we were assigning tasks and they were like, okay, this is just boring. So this is one of the points that you should take a lot of care is keeping them interested and engaged. That's why I came up with that magic framework. Another failure was during the trainings because we assigned the champions and nominated them, but we did not provide immediate trainings because we didn't have a plan beforehand. So that was also something very bad for us because some champions didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to do. So that's why I'm saying it's very important to come up with a training plan right from the start. We also saw some managers very reactive to this program because we didn't have a clear plan in the beginning. So once we came up with a roadmap, it was way clearer for them and we could overcome this. These are some things that come to my mind right now, but there are so many failures along the way.
Thank you. I feel I have the same failures
That's
in my
natural.
place, so yeah, can relate. Maybe share later.
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna have a second round, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you very much, Marcos.
Do we
Peter?
still have time for questions?
Yes,
or,
please,
or-
Peter.
Sure.
Yep.
So you mentioned that that it is essential that you define the exact roles of the security champions. What were these roles in your case in your company? Well, probably you can't tell all of them, but at least some of them. What are the most important roles of your security champions, and how do they relate to the security team? Or I mean, what is the task that is still done by the security team, and what is the task that is done by the security champions?
Sure. I think it's very important to make this distinction that security champions are not security professionals in the sense they are not full-time security professionals. So there are some parts of the security body of knowledge that they don't have visibility, experience, knowledge, and that's okay. So everything that comes as management of core security procedures should be done by security professionals. For instance, coming up with a vulnerability management program. This is something that should be managed and maintained and deployed by security professionals who are taking care of this, the whole life cycle process. However, the champions are very useful for us for fixing vulnerabilities. So we at a security team, we established a bug bounty program. We coordinate pen tests. We have all the indicators and monitor the KPIs in terms of security efficiency. And champions don't need to take care of this. However, when it comes to specific vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting in some part of the code and some shady part of the code, we as security team, we might not have all the context and visibility to that part. So we just reach out to the security champion and ask them for help. And they say, oh yeah, I know this is related to this meta and this class and this package. And they submit a PR and they fix it. We just validate, and it's way faster in this sense. So this is an example in terms of vulnerability management where champions can really shine and where they really shouldn't be responsible for, like in the big processes.
Thanks. And what about so as much as I understand, you basically do penetration tests. I mean, the security department does penetration tests, and then when you find a vulnerability, you pass it to the security champions, and then they fix it. What do you also review the code directly, the source code? I mean, you as a security, as part of the security or the security department, as the security, do you do code reviewing, or is it something that the security champions try to do? Or
absolutely. So it's not possible for a security team who does not have full visibility into the code, does not have all the context or even the experience. Most of security professionals do not come from a development background. So it would not make sense for us to review all the code base in the company without the experience and the time for this. So this is exactly one of the things that champions can help. So once you provide all the training for main vulnerabilities and secure coding practices, and they reach level 2 where they have a deeper understanding of security properties of that specific framework, for instance, they can start doing it inside their teams. So that's exactly the idea. We say, hey, we really should review the code. So this is how we do it. Let me give you an example. Here are the resources. Here are the vulnerabilities you need to check. Here are some common anti-patterns that you should avoid when it comes to security. And then we let them do this, and we just measure the rate of progress. This is something we saw both with code review and threat modeling too. We cannot do threat models for all the features of the company, but the champions can help doing this locally inside their teams. Yeah,
the difficulty here is probably that even if you have one security champion per team, it's probably not enough to review all the other developers' code, because
Yes, absolutely. And if you feel like one is not enough, you certainly should look for more, maybe splitting the code into smaller pieces and assigning a security champion specific for some features. This granularity can be achieved. That's why we said per teams might not be enough, assigning nominating champions per team. Maybe you're going to need to assign them per platform or per parts of the code. That's absolutely okay. But one of the things that we also noticed was that some champions started teaching their fellows. So one champion works very closely to 5 other developers. They taught them how to do code review or threat modeling, and those guys who are not champions, they started doing it too. So it's like a cascading effect. It's very beautiful. If done right, it can have this power.
Yeah, we noticed this kind of the same. Like your security champions are the best PR for the program, right?
Absolutely.
Even if they start asking, like, is it secure? It's already a secure champion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but we see the engagement that is coming, like, from the experience of other champions, let's say. It doesn't always happen, but many times it happens. Maybe one question regarding tooling, because we use quite a lot of security tooling, like from SAS, Dust, Jest, or SCA. Where do you see the champions fit in this case? Like, would you give full ownership of the tooling or part of the tooling? Which kind of responsibility would you give to the champions, and when the security team comes in?
Sure, absolutely. So when we're setting up our AppSec pipeline, let's put it this way, all of the tool set that we're deploying in terms of security development, we relied a lot on champions. So everything that touches the code base should have a champion involved. That's our philosophy. So they were very deployed during the whole process of deploying the pipeline. So from selecting the tools, from participating in the POCs, from providing constant feedback from beginning to end, from being beta testers, they helped throughout the whole process. And in terms of permissions and access, I think this should be analyzed on a case-by-case basis. And I would not grant too much permissions to someone who does not have enough maturity to work with that. That's why we divide it into levels. So of course, if you have a rock star, this person could have a lot of access, a lot of permissions, and actually help to manage it at some level. But the overall, the big picture, the big responsibility should rely on the security team. And each champion should receive a certain part of this process proportional to their maturity level. So if it's like a level 1 or a level 0, maybe they could have visibility of the dashboard for their own projects. But someone more experienced could also have more visibility, maybe full visibility into security issues and vulnerabilities, and manage the tools too.
Yeah, thanks.
I would disagree actually here a little bit, because I cannot say I'm a security champion plus the top level. But what I saw in our company, it won't harm if the person who doesn't have the top level of security already can provide input and, from the common sense, raise a flag and say, hey, I feel like logically it's not okay. So maybe even not be strict on that, limiting what is required from him.
No, I totally agree. It should be analyzed on a case-by-case basis. But as a rule of thumb, the more responsibilities should be proportional to the level of maturity. So someone who has no maturity, no knowledge, no experience at all in terms of security, you should not be assigning complex tasks like managing vulnerabilities or taking care of the whole pipeline. But of course, this person can provide useful input. It's just about given responsibilities and access and permissions. This might not be the best moment yet. But again, it should be analyzed on a case-by-case basis.
Thanks. I have one more question. We're talking here mostly about security champions that are in IT sector. I'm curious, do you have an experience having security champions from, for example, from marketing team or, compliance team, something that, don't code?
I'm also very curious. I have no idea. I was discussing it today with my fellows.
Actually, it was the original idea of Microsoft, I guess, that the security champion has not to be necessarily an IT person or a developer. So I think that in the original Microsoft methodology, it was the point was to have a person who is just participating in the meetings, and when it comes to like major changes or something like that, he or she raises her voice and asks whether it has any kind of security implications. Did you think about it? So that can be the crucial add-on for contribution from the security side to keep developers always aware of that their changes can have security implications, because we know that the developers tend not to think about it, not because they are not security aware, just because security is not the first order priority, whatever we do. So sorry, I just inserted it too.
That's a very valid input indeed. So our experience here does not involve non-technical person. So maybe, as you said, it should be like the next step for us too, but it's something I don't have experience. Our whole program is built focusing on the technical side. So maybe this is something we should expand. But yes, it's absolutely valid to receive other inputs from other areas too.
Maybe some questions from our larger audience, from our guests on our panel.
Sure. Where can I check them?
Okay, nothing. Any further questions? Peter?
Maybe like when it comes to bigger companies, like I'm speaking based on my experience, like one of the challenges that we have is like tracking. What do we want to track and which kind of indicators we need to see that the program is successful? You already mentioned few, but if you have like 300 teams, like we said before the talk started, let's say, we cannot really check whether the code improves. Of course, we will have a pen test later or a code review baseline that will give us an indication. But what do you think are the best indicators, let's say, to track and to make sure that the security posture of the company is improving thanks to the Security Champions program, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big challenge, actually, to correlate directly the Security Champions program with whatever KPIs and metrics you have for the whole security posture. What I would expect is some kind of correlation, not necessarily some causal relationship, but look, since we started the Security Champions program, we perceived a reduction in the time to mitigate our vulnerabilities. It could be related, maybe not, but this is something that we measured. Now, we decided not to use the general metrics and KPIs to measure the Security Champions program success, but to measure the level of implementation of it. So that's why the KPIs are very internal and focused on them. But I've seen other companies that decided to go for a different approach, where they actually measure and they track the number, for instance, of code reviews each champion perform, or the number of threat models they come up with, how many reports, vulnerability reports do they come up with, how many vulnerabilities do they fix, and all these numbers they use as indicators of success of the program. So if champions produce like 100 threat models this quarter, that is an indicator.
Yeah, indeed. It's like monitoring the number of tickets that they process, or the number of reports they make, or the number of threat modeling sessions they host or they do. Yeah, it's definitely, but it's still a challenge to, let's say, prove to the upper management. Let's say, okay, are we safe? The usual. Are we safer than before? How can you prove that to me?
Yeah, it's very hard to do that, because I don't think security can be analyzed through a single mitigation or control. So it's the whole picture, the whole sets of controls, your AppSec pipeline, your testing, your bug bounties, your vulnerability management process, everything together, and of course your Security Champions program. They all together collaborate to reduce and improve some metrics. So it's very hard to select and say, hey, this resulted in that. So I don't think it's even possible to do that direct correlation. So this is
I totally agree with you. But it's like, I think every one of us has the same question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I mean, really interesting to know another company, another site.
Of course. Thank you so much for the questions and the interaction. Pretty cool.
Actually, I wanted to ask Peter. Peter, you have this nice prototype methodology for Security Champions with some special ideas. What was your impression where your methodology probably contradicts what Marcos normatively expressed today, or what are the major additions of your, let's say, playbook to this playbook?
I think when we designed this idea, we focused probably even more on this shift to left concept. So we try to we imagine the Security Champions as being able to do effective code reviews, or actually our imagination was even more ambitious, because we imagined that everybody in the team should receive some basic security training, and they should be able to review their own code, or maybe review each other's code. And when they have a question, then they can turn to the Security Champion, who is kind of has some deeper knowledge, some more expert knowledge on the topic. So the idea is that everyone should know the basics, and here it's very important that you really define what are the basic things that somebody has to know on a certain project, because you can't expect the developers to know about everything, but you have to group. You have to define, okay, what are the vulnerabilities that everyone should know about, because if they don't know about it, they will those vulnerabilities will sneak into the code. And then there are other types of vulnerabilities that not everybody has to know about, because it's enough if some experts or the Security Champions know about it. And yes, so probably that's the difference, that our approach was probably even more ambitious, but probably it's less realistic. We have never really tried this this stuff?
I don't think it's not realistic. It's just maybe it's going to require more effort and more time. And I totally agree with you when you say that we should define what is basic. So, for instance, we have a training that is for all the tech team that includes security and OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, and even the basics of vulnerability management. But it's like in a very, very basic level. That's what we call level 0. So everybody's on level 0 on the company. But we build other levels with more expertise, with more training, with more dedication, just for the champions. And we hope that they become like central figures and points of references for more complex things, as you said. But we do not expect to provide very deep trainings for all the developers. That wouldn't be feasible in our case.
Actually, I think it's not really a difference between basic and more advanced concepts, but rather, and it's a bit out of scope of this talk, but since it came up, we can probably talk a little bit about it. So I think it would be very useful to have a categorization or a grouping of vulnerabilities or security stuff, which is not based on how complex it is or how easy it is, but based on how obvious it is that there is a security issue here. Okay, I tell you an example. If you have a team of developers and someone gets the task to make OAuth authentication, okay. Then it's obvious that it has some security consequences. Everybody will know that, okay, this one has a security consequence. And if there is a security champion in the group, then probably this task will be automatically assigned to the security champion. And if the security champion doesn't know enough about all the security consequences, then he will probably find another more knowledgeable security champion, and she can help him, or maybe go to someone from the security department, and so on and so on. And so there is a chance that if you have security champions and if you have a security department, then there is a chance, and the communication works well, there is a chance that in the end the code will be safe or won't contain terrible vulnerabilities. But if you give someone the task to, I don't know, unzip a file, there is a high chance that the developer who gets this task doesn't even think about that it has any security consequences or any that there can be any security issues, because if someone doesn't know about zip bombs and past traversal vulnerabilities, then someone will just write a code and never go to the security champion and ask, okay, what's the best way to unzip a file, because he doesn't even think that it can have. So that's the kind of basic knowledge I think about, that there are several parts which have security consequences, but many developers don't even know that it has any security consequence. Okay, and there are some even more problematic situations if you just use, I don't know, jQuery as a front-end developer. There are plenty of functions in jQuery which are unsafe, and if a developer doesn't know about it, again, the developer has no way to ask the right person. So that's we could actually group vulnerabilities according to how obvious it is that there is a security issue with this vulnerability. And when it's obvious, then quite controversially, not every developer has to know about this vulnerability, because anyway they will know that this has some security consequences and hopefully find the right person. But when it's not obvious, then every developer should know about it, because otherwise they will introduce vulnerabilities into the code.
It makes total sense to me, and actually, yes, this is something to evaluate and understand a little better. But I see 2 points here too that can help with this issue. One of them is the level 0 includes security awareness for everybody in tech, for everybody outside tech. So basic security awareness training, like do not download attachments, not open suspicious zip files, that it should be part of everybody's training. And even for some more specific, some more general and common categories of vulnerabilities, which today we currently use OWASP Top 10 as a base reference. Maybe it's not the best, maybe we should review and regroup in a more customized way. But all the developers, they should know about it, at least having some idea. But that we understand this wouldn't be enough by any means. So we rely a lot on automation too. So whatever they do, it should go through some automated checks. So if they're using a very vulnerable jQuery function, it should be spotted by our tools. So we also trust and rely on them. So let's break the build right from the start. Let's raise alerts. Let's create PRs and block this to happen. So these are 2 controls that we try to implement.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, that's another important aspect. Is it easy to check the error with automatic tools? Because if it's easy, then again, probably not every developer has to know about it. That's another important aspect. And yes,
I can also add that even after implementation, when you have, for example, the measurement of the ranges that are more critical for the company, for the operation, for example, something like we have in the fintech company like payment sector, there is, it's high risk of if you introduce vulnerability, you actually screw the whole process. And there are some lower level services that can survive with automation tests and from time to time attention. But for those that are critical, I think starting from the threat modeling and then having security champions being involved as a part of the reviewer of the merge request, and after that maybe a request to even the security team to have the third eye on this, can also enforce the whole process of development.
Yes, and yes, definitely, I totally agree. And there is even a fourth aspect. It is like how easy it is to find the vulnerability in a major software, and how easy it is to mitigate that vulnerability in a major. So because there are some vulnerabilities which are easy to find and easy to mitigate, even if the software is almost done. Like, for example, CSRF is relatively easy to find it, and it's easy to mitigate because basically on the backend side you just write a filter, and on the front-end side you just put a token or a header or something into every request, and fine, you are done with it. But if on the other side, if there are cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, and they are there because developers don't understand cross-site scripting, and they tend to use all kind of vulnerable codes, then probably the application is full of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. Probably you won't find all of them during pen testing, and even if you find them, it's difficult to fix them because the developers still have to find the right source code and so on and so on. And again, if something is easy to find in the end and easy to fix it, then again, not every developer has to know about it. So the group of those vulnerabilities and things that every developer has to know about it, probably not even that big, if we take all these into considerations.
I think definitely you cannot put a policeman under each tree, but if you will, grow this security champions, security awareness from year to year, and eventually people are growing. So yeah, if you remember yourself 10 years ago and the code you write today, you won't be look at it without
hopefully
any additional beer or anything stronger. So yeah, we evolve, and yeah, maybe AI will be the next level of helping here with vulnerabilities. Why not?
Yeah, AI will be writing the code and make developers
Cry.
Useless, totally
out
useless.
of
Yes,
luck.
yes.
Yeah. So we are
few more
approaching.
decides, and yeah,
I beg your
this
pardon?
will probably happen. A few more decides, and probably this will happen, but we still have some time.
Yeah. So we are approaching
And
the
money, yeah.
the 2 hours limit. A short question to you, Peter, because still I remember, I may recall it wrongly, but you also had some idea about measuring the progress. I mean, measuring the success or impact of the program. What was your idea in line what Marcos said about measuring? Yeah.
Yes,
the results.
yes. I think what Marcos said was actually broader and better. I just yeah.
Okay, super. So guys, just to discuss it, we could wrap up then the meat part of the meeting. Agreed? No objection? Okay, thank you very much, Marcos. Thank you very much, Julia, and Peter also, and of course, Davide, for your participation, and everyone who could remain with us for these 2 hours, actually, which is I don't know, is it a result of bad design of our meetup, or the exciting things that prevented us from stop at the formerly normal limit of a meetup? Still, it will be available, hopefully, on YouTube. As far as I know, some people from even New Zealand and Australia wanted to check out our talk, and due to the time zone differences, it's only possible in recorded form. So, and yeah, we did not have too much attendees, live attendees, but our videos tend to be watched later. So maybe 200 or 300 views will hit this video later. Yep, and the last thing could be about the next second episode. So don't forget that there is the second part of this talk, which where Julia will be starring. And the question is, if guys, you agree to do it on the 24th of March, then we could close it and announce.
Oh, probably need to check on my side.
Good for me.
Davide, it's okay for you?
Yeah.
Marcos?
Yep.
Marcos, is it good for you?
Yes, works for me.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah. Yes, it seems to be
Okay, then agree that it will be 24th. Then, Julia, we are expecting you to entertain us that evening, because today you seemingly were the second most active participant or speaker, actually, of the meetup, because right questions are also the very active part of the delivery. Thank you very much, and let's wrap up this nice meeting. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to this content. Bye-bye, and see you on 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Marcos.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
See you.